Hello. All right, I'm here to introduce our wonderful moderator today. This is her full name, Miss Peppermint, everyone's favorite flavor. Miss Peppermint is a trailblazing actress, singer, DJ, reality star, and activist who defies limitations. A longtime key figure in queer nightlife, Peppermint's star rose thanks to her smashing success as the first out trans contestant in RuPaul's Drag Race, where she finished as a runner-up in one of the series' most talked about finales. Soon after, her talent led her to become the first trans woman to originate a principal role on Broadway in the hit musical Head Over Heels. She serves on the board of GLAAD and is the ACLU's Artist Ambassador for Transgender Justice. Recent projects include an appearance on Ryan Murphy's Emmy Award-winning series Pose, a recurring role on the CBS series God Friended Me, and an upcoming role on the new Fox scripted drama Deputy. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for tonight, Miss Peppermint.
Thank you. Hello. Hi. Wow, wasn't that fantastic? I'm talking about the walk. No, just kidding. Obviously, the films. This is going to be so fantastic. And this is such a treat. Now, obviously, after hearing my bio, I have nothing to do with this film, except for being an absolute diehard fan. And so it's such a wonderful experience to be up here on stage introducing who I'm about to introduce. So I want you all to give it up for the people whose masterpiece you just witnessed. I'm going to do it in order. Okay, I'm going to change this a little bit. They have an extensive international production experience in countries such as Argentina, Australia, the Czech Republic, France, Germany, Hungary, India, New Zealand, Spain, South Africa, Thailand, and the United Kingdom, and have established a strong reputation in the world of commercials, continuing to produce spots and campaigns for the world's most prestigious brands. She began her film career as production manager on this fabulous documentary, Paris is Burning, and is a native of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, a Trini. And a graduate of New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. I give you Natalie Hill. For time's sake, because we all know what it looks like for somebody to walk down the steps, we'll keep it going. He's an artist, a humanitarian, and is one of a trio of creative consultants for the television series, the award-winning and groundbreaking television series Pose. Outside of his work on Paris is Burning, he has appeared in Strays with Vin Diesel, Wigstock with RuPaul, and off-Broadway in the play The Ball. He holds an associate degree in hospitality management, a bachelor's degree in sociology, and unfinished master's degree in education. A cancer survivor, he is currently doing work as a background performer. Please put your hands together for Freddie Lee Pendavis! He began in the New York City ballroom scene during the 1980s as a member of the House of Omni, eventually joining the House of Pendavis under legendary mother Avis Pendavis. He appeared as both narrator and on-screen commentator in the legendary documentary Paris is Burning. and he is the current grandfather of the House of Pendavis. Most recently, he worked as a consultant for the groundbreaking television series Pose, featuring the largest, and Pose, of course, featured the largest cast of both transgender and LGBT actors to ever be featured in a regular TV series. He served his country in the United States Armed Forces, retiring as captain in 2012. Captain in 2012. You thought I was going to say something else. He holds degrees from Metropolitan College in New York City and has taught public speaking at the Lawson Center, has taught public speaking at the Lawson Center and a part of the gay men's health crisis. Please put your hands together for Saul Williams! You better come on with that coat. I didn't see that earlier. You didn't bring that when we were talking about them shoes backstage. You left that out on the side. I didn't get you. Okay. And last but most certainly not least, their first film was Paris is Burning in 1991, and the film won a Sundance Grand Jury Prize and was on several 1991 top 10 Best Film of the Year lists. In 2016, it was included in the film registry at the Library of Congress, darling, official. And in 2021, it was included in an excerpt in the new Academy Museum. They wrote and directed 3 original shorts, Who's on Top in 2005, Through the Ice in 2005 as well, and Hotheads in 1993. Their for-hire works include directing a projected piece for Elton John's stage show and directing an episode of Pose. They taught at Yale, Brooklyn College, and Connecticut College, and have worked as a speaker and educator worldwide. They are currently completing a non-fiction. I was like, competing, all right. They are currently completing a non-fiction feature, Earth Camp 1. They are also developing a fiction and hybrid projects for film and television. Of course, I'm talking about the filmmaker themselves, Jennie Livingston. All right. Welcome. Oh, we got our water in a can. Yes. Hey, shut up. Now, look, y'all, later on, we're going to open it up to questions, so I want you to go ahead and get your minds going. If we answer something that you were going to ask, then you don't have to ask it, but just in case, get it ready. All right, here we go. That's the bios. So, well, hello. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
So, well, okay, this is, have any of you seen each other since 30 years ago? 30, okay.
Me and Saul, I've known Saul since I was 16 years old, and we've been friends ever since. So we see each other like every month, 2 months, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we see each other pretty frequently.
I have not seen them since the movie.
Wow,
I know.
since 1991.
I
That
saw
was
that
like
face
31
today, and I was
years
like,
ago.
whoa.
Oh my God, excuse me, 31 years ago?
No. Jenny, I've seen a few years ago. So.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, we always see Jenny.
Yeah. Well, now we are seeing them live and in color. Right. Oh, we got more lights. Thank you. Together, and this is fantastic. Now, we got a lot to dig in, and we got some limited time, so we're going to get right kicking into this. Got a couple questions for you, and I want to just throw out first of all this film. I would be remiss to begin a panel, talking about the film and speaking with each of you without acknowledging the most obvious, is that it's such a seminal piece of culture, and it really speaks to and spoke to me and resonated with the world, I think, and is the queerest, blackest domino that really started a domino effect that just ripples throughout American culture, American film and television now, by way of ballroom culture and queer culture, and now on to in other countries. There's people, I never thought I'd see people in Ireland voguing the house down.
Yes.
And so with so much cultural impact that I think it's just like it will be paying off forever as long as we can hear and see and take in images. This masterpiece and your images and what you put together and what you've helped produce are going to be paying off for generations. Even they won't even know it. And so that being said, I know that you didn't know what you were starting. Right. So what was it for you, Jennie? What was there a moment, and I don't know this, I really want to know, was there one moment what was the decision that you said, I need to capture this and bring this together? What had you been exposed to? What club had you hung out at? Where did you go? Right. What was it?
Well, I mean, the genesis, the very beginning, right, was, I was trained as a photographer, and I was trained in the way where you go out into the world and you see what's going on in the world, and you get turned on and galvanized and excited, about what's in the world. So I was in Washington Square Park, and I was just, new to the city, taking a little summer film class, but I went around with my still camera. And there were these guys who were voguing. I didn't know that's what they were doing, but I said, may I photograph you? They said yes. And they just wanted to be photographed. And I, was interested in how they moved. And I said, well, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're voguing. I was like, what's that? I said, well, it's a dance. And if you want to see more of it, go to a ball. So then I went to a ball with a little wind-up black and white film camera that we had in the summer class. A Bolex is what it was called, wind-up film camera. And a friend took sound, and that was my first ball. It was what would now be called a kiki ball. It was like a little daytime, affair at the community center. I met Venus. That was the first time I met Venus. But then I went to meet Willie because those guys in the park said, if you want to meet a voguer, go meet Willie. Right. And so I used to hang out with Willie at June Liberta's dance studio with Archie Burnett and Willie and these guys. They had a dance troupe called Breed of Motion. And then I started going to the balls, taking still pictures. But then after I went and I began to meet people and listen to people and listen to the eloquence and the shade and the wit, plus the movement, plus the costuming, plus all the identities that were being explored. And it was such a comment on America and on identity. And I'm a young queer person who doesn't really quite know that I'm queer. So, there's a thing with my own identity and my own gender, that's being sparked. But it was really mostly about just talking to people and hearing what you all had to say and just feeling like this is a great comment on, how we form our identities in the U.S., who gets left out, who gets let in, and how people form resilience, amidst struggle. And it just seemed like such a great comment for a movie, and then it was a whole journey to do that.
And we are grateful for that. So how long was that period of just getting to know folks and going to take pictures? 2 years? 2 years. And is that included in the sort of 7-year span of the life of this? Like, how long did it take to film this?
Well, I would say, so I started to shoot when I could and take a lot of audio. I'd go to people's homes and do interviews. And so that I started, and a lot of photographs. The first shoot was February of '86. Natalie was there, and it was at the Elks Lodge, the Paris is Burning Ball. So the idea was to shoot some footage, make a little trailer, and then convince people, to give us money. And I just want to say, this was in the day. For those of you who know technology and don't know technology, there was no, phone where you could shoot. There was no video cameras, no digital cameras. So you had to raise enough money to hire the guy with the $50,000 film camera that it cost $150 every 10 minutes just to shoot, not including developing. So you had to go out and raise money, to even make a little film.
Wow. Okay. And so, for the two of you, what was going through your mind the first time? I mean, you obviously already had met them. You'd met Jennie, and before you started filming, right? And so, you hadn't. Okay, so you were not one of the people who had established a relationship with Jennie before actual shooting. Not yet. Okay. And so, when you were approached, what was going through your mind? Because again, you had explained, Jennie, that it was a different time. We didn't have all these things that we have now, like the internet and phone and social media, and just like the notion of filming ourselves is as natural as getting onto an Instagram story today. But what did that mean for you in that moment? Did you think this is just going to be something that some filmmaking people want to see, or did you think did it occur to you that this would carry out past the community? What was that like for both of you?
You first.
I had no idea how far it was gonna go. I basically didn't know what I was doing. When I went to Paris is Burning, I was coming from the airport to pick up the keys for my wife to go home.
Oh,
And she was in the
honey.
audience. Yeah, she was in the audience. And when I walked by, Jennie filmed me walking by in uniform. That was how military got into the ballrooms. Right?
Are you serious? You just went to go
Isn't that
pick
how
up
it
some
happened?
keys?
That's how it happened. And then I left and went home. And after that, they said that lady is looking for you. So, then somebody gave her my phone number. She came to my house, and she interviewed me in my house with my wife. And
It's sitting on the couch right next to you.
Yeah,
Okay, I was like, who's that lady on the couch like this?
yeah, that's how that happened. So I wasn't familiar, but that was the first time I ever walked into a ballroom, and I snatched grand prize at Paris the Free Ball, in uniform, trying to get home.
Wow.
So from that point on, I was the open eyes to military wear, and that's how I got into the ballroom. But they only allowed me to walk once or twice, and after that, I was on a microphone for 10 years. So I never got the benefit of doing I did my walking when I got a chance, but most of the time I was on the microphone.
But so then, did you think that you were going to be a film star?
I didn't think I was going to be in a ball.
All right. Okay, so you weren't even thinking about
No,
a
but
film.
I'm the boss now, so I'm good.
Okay. What about you, Freddie, honey?
Oh well, Kim Pendavis, took me to the ball, and as far as it goes, he heard from Avis that it's going to be the same thing that Crystal went through with being
With
filmed and
the
everything
Queen.
else. Yes.
Mhm.
So I heard that, but I still said, you know what? Why not give it a chance? And that was when we filmed. That was when the day you came over. You came to the house and filmed, and caught Kim on the machine. And that was it. I really didn't know. I remember I was laughing, and the original screening when we screened it at NYU, Kim, Marvin, Peter, a couple of others, always saying, "There goes that queen again. There goes that queen again." Every time I popped up on the film. They just kept making fun of me, but I loved it. I enjoyed it, and I enjoy it even today, looking at it.
Did you know that you had captured did you know that you had contributed to something that felt so did it resonate with you the way that you think it might resonate with everyone else now? Did it resonate with you when you watched it that first time? Were you like, okay, that's cute, that's us, and we look good, you did a good job? Or were you like, whoa, that was good? Like, what was your reaction?
No, I kept getting, "There goes that queen again." But besides that, I kept getting, "Don't let it blow up your head. Do not be grounded. No, you still gonna take out the garbage. You still gonna make up your bed. You better watch these kids." So it was more of a grounding thing for me, where I wasn't able to quote unquote blow up or have any real concrete thoughts about it, because it was just me being me. And because of that, it was funny. I met someone, and they said they seen it, and they were 8 years old, and they said they would be my husband. As soon as they grew up, they went to the village and looked for me and everything else. And even today, me and them, we still are in contact, and that's it. So it's just a wonderful thing, because that especially resonated with me in my heart very deeply. You know, anybody who tells me that I seen it when I was so young, and it helped me be able to be strong in myself and understand who I am and love who I am and be able to go forward, it just makes me feel fabulous.
Oh, that's so beautiful. All right, darling. There goes that queen again. She's fabulous. Natalie, so I can't even imagine. At some point, this went from, we didn't know what this was going to be. We don't have enough money to put it together. Let's just see if we can get some pictures, some audio, to making a film. And so, how did you come on board, first of all? And then second of all, what the hell was it like trying to be a production manager and coordinate? I mean, you go to a ball, if you've been to a ball, y'all, you better clear your schedule.
You ain't getting out until around 5, 6 in the morning.
Whatever time you think you get, whatever. So what was that like?
Well, let's start by the fact that I had no idea what a production manager was. Okay. But I was trying to scam 4 credits from NYU. So I took an
So you were the right person for the film.
So I took an internship, and I figured, I get 4 credits, and then I saw this company, black and white TV, blah, 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 drag queen, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this sounds really great. And then I met Jennie, and I was saying tonight, she made me do transcriptions, first of all. And the first time I put on the headset to listen to the stories, I was blown away. And that was it. I just stayed. And then we started shooting. I don't know where the money came from. And then we got a tiny little bit of money, but we were out there shooting, and it was just doing it. And they would ask for things. I would try and figure out how to do it, and had no idea how to do it, but we did it. Beg favors, do this, do that, prepared me for my job now.
Okay, so obviously, just going back to this, because I want to get a really good idea of this, the relationships that you had started before you actually started filming, obviously benefited being able to enter the spaces and make the film, I would imagine. And so how much time was spent in production versus post-production?
Sure. I mean, so what happened was, the way we finally were able to shoot not just that first ball and a couple other little shoots and a lot of audio was, I had a friend who was an intern at WNYC, which was at that time, it was the city public station. And he was making our little trailers, that we were going out to apply for grants with. And his boss said, what are you, doing? What are you taping over there? And she's like, oh, I'm making my friend's trailer. Well, can I look at it? She looked at it, and she really liked it. And she showed it to the head of the station, who was Madison Davis Lacey, who was one of the producers of Eyes on the Prize. He had directed a film about Hattie McDaniel. And he looked at the trailer, and he was like, oh, this is really interesting. Called me in for a meeting, said, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm trying to make kind of a short film. And he was like, well, what would you do if you could do anything? Well, I think it would be a feature. And he basically said, well, I'll give you half. So that was an executive producer,
Angel.
An angel, but also he saw a young filmmaker with a vision, and he saw the world of the balls. I mean, he is an African-American straight male, but he said, this is my world. This is a culture I understand, even though I'm not gay and I'm not trans. And he got it. And that's really, what you need as a young filmmaker, as any filmmaker, people who they appreciate your vision. And that's why the arts are so important. So we had shot a little bit. He said, go. Summer of '87, Natalie comes on board as production manager. We filmed those balls. I mean, we'd done the Paris is Burning ball.
Right.
You guys weren't there.
True.
But then we were on the pier. We were in people's homes.
Yep.
We were in more balls. And that was about 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of shooting. We got that. And then 2 years later, we needed to do a little follow-up. Unfortunately, tragically, Venus had died. Venus had been murdered. Willie was succeeding. He was traveling all over. We needed to show, the catch-up. So in 89, we did a little more shooting. We shot The Love Ball, which was kind of the ball worlds beginning to cross over. And then we were done with our cut 1990. So that's the trajectory.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about 4 years with a little tiny break in between.
Yeah, 7 years if you count all the
All the
getting
stuff,
to
but,
know
yeah.
and then finishing, and then going from, as we were discussing, going from a film that ends with Dorian saying, if you
Hooray
shoot an
for
arrow
you.
and it goes real high, hooray for you, to we needed a credit sequence, and we got that just before Sundance, which was January of 1991.
Okay, so now we know the time frame. So for Freddie and Saul, I already asked that. I'm just flying through these questions. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Saul, you were just coming to the ball and just walking through by happenstance, and was so fierce at doing it. Now there's a whole category now. But what was your connection, either at a distance or in some way, to the folks in ballroom before that? Because you must have known somebody they had your keys. Well, why were your keys there?
My wife was there with I was in the military. I was stationed in Germany. So my wife used to hang with gay guys to keep them cheating.
That's
on
what
me.
it was.
So she was at the ball when I came on to surprise her. They said she had the ball in Harlem. So I'm like, okay, a ball. What the hell's a ball? So they said
And
that's
then
this place to help lot. So by the time I got from the airport to the ballroom to go pick up my keys, I walked to get my keys. They filmed me going across, and that's how that got in. And then when I got my keys, I left. After that, I heard from Jennie to do the show.
So, but your wife had gone to balls before.
Yeah,
and so she had all her gay friends, and you had known them. And
I didn't know her friends because I was gone for 7 years.
Oh, okay, so this was just a
It was new to me.
surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, brand new world, a whole new world. I think when I do interviews and talks now, one of the main questions that people ask in relation to doing drag and RuPaul's drag, my experience of RuPaul's Drag Race, is what is chosen family, what is, sort of acknowledging the impact of ballroom culture in the world of drag and the connection to the two. And so they are always asking questions about, what about a house mother? What is the connection? Do you have a drag mother? Do you have, family? And so that's that feeling of family, which really comes through in the film. Can you just talk a little bit about what that family connection was like? I mean, for you were just going to get your keys and then shabam. And so eventually, what was your connection, the personal connection? Were these your sisters and can you talk a little bit about the family-ness of it for both of you?
My family basically accepted me for what I did, as long as I was happy with it, whatever. But when I met Freddie and all them, they was all into sewing and making clothes, and I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. I was a grunt. So I sat there and I watched and I learned how to sew, and then Avis gave everybody a class. Everybody in the house of Pendavis learned how to sew, cook, clean, and take care of your house. And you have to walk Butch Queen first time in drag.
Not to mention about the education part.
Yeah, you have to have a degree in order to be the father of the house. So that's why. Oh yeah. So Freddie's just got promoted to the father of the house because he graduated this year. Yeah.
That's right, darling.
So I relinquished my throne after 14 years.
But you're still the grandfather.
So now I'm the grandfather. Yeah, I'm the grandfather. I'm old. So I'm the grandfather, so he's the father of the house. So we're together so much because I teach him the rope as we go. And this way he'd be a great father like I was because my house is raining.
And don't you forget it, darling. And so what about you? What was your connection? How did you get into the scene, and what was the connection to?
Like I said, Kim was my connection, and he was my anchor in the scene. Everybody kind of they would laugh and think that Kim would not walk because he would be there, he'd smoke his cigarettes, and he'd walk around socializing. And then all of a sudden a cab would pull up, and I'd come out with Kim's clothes, and they say, "Oh, he is walking. Oh my gosh, Freddie's here, he's walking." Yes, so that was me. I was always Kim's undercover threat for everybody. So that was my in of the
Surprise.
ballroom and my connection. So
Now, okay. Let me keep going with these questions on the paper. I'm balancing. You know what I mean?
Can I say something?
Yes, you may. Please do.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say, Freddie, when you were talking about the 8-year-old, and I feel like when the film came out, it was first unrated. And then when it was distributed, they rated it R. Which is like there's nothing.
Why?
There's nothing R-rated. Like there's some topless people, and there's one swear word.
Right.
And that's it. There's no sex. There's no violence.
Right.
But that's how queer and
Because of the
trans
content.
lives
Because of the
were
content.
seen. You just that was dangerous. But I just wanted to say, about 4 years ago, Wesley Morris, who is a critic for the New York Times, did a feature, because the New York Times has a kids section, like it's like a fold out print only children's section. And for the children's section, he did a piece called 12 films to see before you turn 13. And guess
and
what he
Paris
included?
Burning is on that list.
And that's how the culture has changed. Like children should see this movie to learn about what they need to learn about in the world.
I think, Jenny, this film helped change that culture.
Oh, it did, 100%. Speaking of children, since you brought it up, and I know you've been asked this question before. Any of you may know, but I'm suspecting that I hope someone knows. What became of those two boys in...
They're still alive.
Saul.
Okay.
They're still alive. They live in Queens.
Okay, they're still alive and live in Queens.
They live in Queens.
Okay, good.
One works for UPS and the other one works for Prime.
Say it into the...
One work for UPS and one work for Prime.
Okay, so they got jobs. Everybody's nice.
Yeah, they're making pennies.
Okay, because the young out on the street, I don't know, but that looked like 2, 3, 4 in the morning down there. Okay, so good job. That's probably the number one question I would imagine.
Yeah.
But I have to say just one thing. Speaking of where everybody is, every time I see this film, no matter how many years later, I'm always still broken by the whole thing with Venus.
Yeah.
I cannot get over it.
It's
And
hard to believe it's only me and
nothing's
him left.
changed.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed.
I want to ask a little bit. Thank you for bringing that in, Natalie. So, one of the ladies that was at the ball in the hallway with her girlfriend or her partner, getting ready to go in, and someone was asking, maybe it was you, asking, why is the show so late? What about the girls? And she was like, oh, there's showgirls. And she was alluding that there was some other activities happening. Women of the night. Did any of the... I'm curious if in your... at that time and in your conversations, if the notion of... What I'm saying, no one says it in the film, but what I'm taking from the film is that there was an element of survival sex work going on. And obviously that was going on. There was a lot less options for women who were openly trans. And there were, there were just a lot less options. And so how did you connect with that ideal? You obviously edited a lot of stuff out of, or there's stuff that didn't, there's stuff that we don't see in the film, whether it was captured or not. But that is such a major storyline in things like Pose, and it's something that you can take. All these girls are, many of these girls are working girls, but we don't really talk about it that much in the film. And so what was your connection to that? And did people feel comfortable sharing about that with you?
I mean, there's quite a lot of outtakes. There were two girls that we followed. I think their names were Brittany and Brett, I think. I just saw these outtakes for the first time in years when we got the DVD together, for Katrine, which was back in 2019. And they were really struggling, and not well. And there were a lot of drugs involved. And we didn't want to show that, and not because, we're like, oh, we're just making a cheerful little movie, but we didn't know it well enough. Do you know what I mean? And I think we only wanted to show people we knew well enough. We felt confident, that we loved them and we could show people who were it's not so much like, oh, Venus was doing sex work. And even though she plays with like, oh, I'm not doing that, it's clear she is. But I think, there was some outtakes of like someone who clearly was like on the street and really suffering. And we didn't want to show that because, that's like, again, you would have to go very deeply into that story to tell that story. So I think, we struggled with like, we don't want to make like a cheerful little movie where everyone's just great and perfectly resilient. But we also don't want to show something very dire that we're not going deeply into because that's not right either. It's not the kind of storytelling we wanted it to be.
Did you want to add anything to that?
Oh no,
Okay.
no.
I have a question.
There were just as there were women who did it, there were men who did it. So it was across the board, and just like you said, it was a thing of just survival, and so many people didn't have any other options because at the time it was so different and so very hard, unlike today.
So I really want to address this tastefully, but we were looking at a film with many queer people of color, some of whom were engaged in survival sex work, some of whom did not have the typical connection to the family, that might have supported them. So they found that in community, and were so beautifully, especially you, Freddie, as I take you and Dorian, sort of in my mind as the narrators of this entire piece, and we're so candidly sharing parts of your life, and it was so open and it felt so unfiltered. I think that's why so many people connect to you and the film, and at least a very big part of the reason why. And so, knowing that you are sharing so openly and we're seeing so much of your life, how have now in 2022, in the light of the epic impact of this film, which is obviously undeniable, there are conversations which need to be had, especially post 2020, about equity and sort of the film has gotten criticism in certain circles, and the service that I believe that the film provided is priceless, and because we got to connect with these folks. But along with that comes criticism about how people were doing after the film, and different things like that. So some of the criticism may or may not have been warranted, but I'm curious, at what point did that criticism start to come into play that you heard? Was it immediate? I know that you mentioned that some of the folks said, oh, this is going to be another, queen. And so that obviously was a notion right away. And so what point did you start hearing some of the criticism? Did you start hearing some of the criticism, if there was any, back then? And certainly it's, people are more educated about a lot of these ideals and notions now. And so can you talk a little bit about that or address some of that?
Basically, the criticism that I heard, the feedback and stuff like that from people that was talking about the show, they overall liked the movie, but they didn't like the way that the characters were projected. Because the only one to me that had a problem was the kids in New York who weren't in it. Because when you talk gay, you ain't gay until you can say hey. So if you on the film and you're like, hey, now you fab. Now you're gonna give everybody, watch the show, it's hot. Watch the show, it's hot. It's piping, I'm in it. But if you're not in it, you miss that 15 minutes. So who wanna watch them old queens? I ain't got no time for that. So that's what you get. That's the feedback that you get. When you look at the meat on the biscuit, they get hungry, they be like, wow, if it wasn't for this show, we wouldn't have had Pose. We wouldn't have had Leave It on the Floor. We wouldn't have had people coming out of the closet. We wouldn't have no transgenders because the government wouldn't have paid for it. So be blessed by what you got because of this show. I'm not trying to big up the show because we did it. I'm just saying I've seen so many benefits from the release of the show opposed to that much negativity. Because now since the show, trannies can get their surgery for free.
In New York.
They
In
get
New
free
York.
breast, free everything.
Yeah.
And food stamps, and they pay you to live.
That was a taste back to 1991.
Yeah, so that's since the movie they get free bodies.
Yeah.
They go to the doctor, come out with breasts. On the food stamp card.
And on the real, that was a very different situation back in the
Yeah.
day. Even a few years ago when I started my medical transition, I was considering survival sex work because at the time the governor in New York hadn't,
yeah, they weren't doing
connected
surgery
it.
and stuff. Yeah.
So what about the feedback from? If you want to add anything to that?
Okay, well, I mean, just like the feedback from Pose, there were so many people who were like, I'm on it. Then all of a sudden, when they weren't seen or weren't shown, it's like, oh, who care about that? I mean, I got so many haters. I mean, real haters. People who
Back right away
I mean, after Pose.
after Pose.
Pose. Even though I was in the room, Jenny, me, and Saul, among also, God bless the dead, Hector Stravaganza, was there in the room when the original thoughts and concepts with Paris is Burning helped to create the show. Pose. And I get a lot of, oh, you not worth. How am I not worth? I try to do as much as I can to help the community, to help people. But though, cool. If you want to do that, cool. Take my spot. But though I don't think you really can, but go ahead, do your thing. Have fun. And I laugh, just like y'all are.
Natalie, this is I think one of the shining gems on your resume. And so what has the feedback been that you heard over the years through the decades? What has the feedback been both outside in personal circles and in the industry? I'm curious.
I would say that of all the movies I've done, the commercials, every art films, the blah, blah, whatever I've done, people always come up to me and go nuts about Paris is Burning. I've not heard, no one has ever come to me and said, oh, you did whatever. Never. It's always been glowing. And it's, I get hit to this day. I still get hit on Instagram, Facebook, text, emails. I saw Paris is Burning on plane today. Here's a snapshot of
Don't
me.
tell me.
Here's
Oh,
a
yes, it is
snapshot
on the plane. It's on the plane.
It's on- here's a
Y'all,
snapshot of me.
I wonder if it's edited. It's on the plane,
You know
y'all.
that, Jenny?
Yes, it is.
Oh, you see
Knew that.
Yeah, yeah.
They knew that.
That's what I mean. Here's
It's
a picture of me watching
we
it on
flying
the plane.
international. Took 30 years to make the screen.
Jenny, can you speak to some of the criticism and feedback that you've gotten and heard and how it's changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, personally, like people often, if I'm in a place where it's clear, I mean, I'm a director, so people don't know who you are, but, I'll be at Sundance and someone will be like, I was a black gay man in a little Texas town. Thank you. Or I was actually on Pose, I was in the bathroom during a break and a lady in the restroom, we were washing our hands, said, may I talk to you? And I said, yeah, sure. What's up? I'm the director. Talk to me. She was on the crew. She said, I'm trans. I saw the movie 10 years ago. Seeing Octavia made me realize I could become myself. So, that matters to me more than, like if a million people have a million criticism, those two people, and it's not just those two people have that feedback, then I did my job, In terms of the criticism, I think like Bell Hooks, she didn't like it. I could say a lot about that, but the main thing was I think that she didn't appreciate the community. She didn't appreciate how radical it is for queer people to make families. And I mean, I didn't feel like.
Was this in 1990?
91, yeah.
92.
And there's a lot I could say about that, but I also feel like she didn't like a lot of what the white critics said, but she didn't acknowledge the black queer critics, like Michelle Parkerson, whose movie you saw today about Storm May. she wrote a review in the Black Film Review, now defunct magazine. Essex Hemphill, from Tongues Untied, he wrote about it in The Guardian, and they all loved it. And so I think if she just said, like, I'm straight and I'm cis and I don't relate to it because of this, or I didn't feel comfortable in the audience because of this, but there are these queer critics who are African American who loved it. She didn't even acknowledge it, so I didn't love that. And then the only other thing I wanted to say about that is people talk about appropriation, and I think there's a big conversation to have about appropriation, people telling our own stories, telling other people's stories. But I think that, film in general, first of all, like, I'm white. I made a film about a Black and Latinx, world. I'm also queer. I'm also gender nonconforming. So the intersectional identities were not simple. There are some nuances there. And I also think film, if you look at some of the films that you love, like you could look at Moonlight, and, the director is a black man, but he's not a gay black man.
Right.
You could look at Chloe Zhao, and you could say, she's not from the nomad world. There are many things about her identity which give her insight, for sure. And I don't think all of the best films are always someone representing, making decisions to tell stories about themselves. So I think, I understand, and I think for someone to say, I never want to see another film directed by a man. I just want to watch women, or I don't want to watch white people anymore. I just want to watch directors of colors. That would be a legitimate decision. But if you're going to take what you watch from the pool, be nuanced about it. And some of the conversations about Paris is Burning, they're not always nuanced. And that's, I could go on and on, but that's,
It's almost as if, and I don't mean to be so trite with this, but it's almost as if they could only reach that criticism standing on the platforms that the movie built in order to get to the space of criticizing it in the first place.
You said it
Exactly.
Correct. And
You
so,
said it perfectly.
with that being said, I would like to open it one more time. If there's anything else that you were thinking that you might have wanted to say to our audience, please get ready to tell us. And if there's a question or two that anybody has, please let us know. We are on tight time, so raise your hands and we will do our best to get to you. So think about it, prepare your question, and I'm going to open it up to our esteemed panel one last time to just give a nice something that you want to say. We're not saying goodbye just yet, but go ahead and say what you want to say, and then we'll address the audience afterwards. Anyone? Or should we just go right into
She
questions?
had a question or something.
Okay, so we're ready. You're ready to go to questions?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go to you. Hi there.
Hi, thank you for picking my question. This is a very special film for me. This movie came out literally the same time as I did. Like the day before I came out, and then the next day it was on Donahue.
I remember that, Jay.
So,
I know what movie you went and saw that first day.
well, no, actually, because it took a while. I was in Peoria, Illinois. And
Okay, they didn't get until it was
I'm
that
one of those-
Blockbuster.
I'm one of those people that's like, if you had not made this film, I would not have known this world was out there. And I would not have known that I was not alone in the world. I had never seen 5 black gay people in a room before I saw this movie before. And that was the first time in 1992 that I got to see that. And I'm very grateful for that. I didn't want to talk about myself, but I want to also, I have cancer, and I went through chemo last year, and every time I got out of the hospital, I watched this film.
Oh.
And this
Thank
is
you.
actually my first public outing since my stem cell transplant.
Thank you for coming.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for coming.
So much.
I love you.
Thank you
all.
for the
Love-
blessing of being
thank you-
here.
Thank you for your blessing, because you guys are my elders, and I love you so much.
Oh, we ain't that old now.
You're the one that said
Hold on, honey.
you
How
claimed
old are you?
grandfather.
I'm the grandfather
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah,
but I
notice I said, hold on, honey. How old are you?
Oh, honey, getting read and praised at the same time. Okay, let's go
But
to
I
the...
do, no, I
okay,
have a
go ahead.
question. I actually,
Oh,
do
what's
have
the question?
A legit question. I actually wanted to ask Jenny about the choice of the song, the Cheryl Lynn song, "To Be Real" in the movie. It ended up becoming such an integral part. How did you pick that song?
So most of the music cues in the movie are straight from
the
the ball
balls.
world, from what the DJs were playing for specific categories. But then, we wanted to use it in a way that suggested that everybody out there was playing the game of realness.
Right.
Everyone was creating an identity. So it not only spoke to the realness category in the ballroom, it's because when I was going to balls, beginning to go to balls, I'm a night person, so I was delighted. I'd get there at midnight. It wouldn't have started yet. I'd come out at 9 in the morning.
9 o'clock in the
my
morning.
schedule. I loved it. But I'd look around and suddenly gender was exploded in my mind. I was like, what's a man? What's a woman? Like everybody's constructing everything. And so that song seemed to really suggest that when you looked at, the quote unquote straight people or out on Fifth Avenue. So that's, all from the ball world DJs, really.
Fantastic. I think we had a question in the front. Thank you for your question. Hello there.
Hi, good evening. My name is Violet Maldonado. I'm just wanted to say thank you for being here. And one of my favorite lines in the film is at the end when Dorian says, if you shoot an arrow in the sky and it goes real high, hooray for you. And for me as a person who is a disabled trans person, is knowing that my reach is limited and knowing that I have that inner validation for myself, and seeing this film and seeing how many young people are out there looking for validation and looking for a way to be seen as excellent and worthy, and finding these families. I'm like, what was it like for you to experience that, seeing these young people looking for these validations, and maybe turning to the wrong places sometimes, but also finding family and meaning in community? What was that like for you as a filmmaker and as a subject?
Well, for me, it was a little different because before I got my doctorate degree in psychology, I worked with handicaps at ACS and United Cerebral Palsy. So they taught us and trained us way back when how to treat people, how to be polite to people, and to realize that people are just people. That also helped me to unite with people of all genders and things like that. So I'm glad we were able to give you a good word. God bless you.
Yes, I worked in HIV and AIDS in the William F. Rand Community Health Center, and in CVOs around New York City, and most of the times we would try to reach out to people who were just, in a word, lost and needed validation and needed help, needed comfort, and needed direction. And that's what I did, in the 80s after the past is burning. And it was, in a sense, a building on of what Jennie was talking about and what we needed at the time. We were even talking about, just like you were saying, stem cells. We were talking about it way back then, about how it could help us. And it's so great to know that it's helping people now. Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much for your presence.
Yeah, and I just think that, the idea of community, it just wasn't something, I don't know, it wasn't something growing up I was that aware of, what it would be, I think I grew up more separate. And I think the idea, not to idealize it either, right? Because people are flawed, whether they're in a community or a family or a couple or friend. But I think it was really impressive given the forces rallied against, the people in the ball community and the adjacent people, how to actually have self-love and how to give a trophy, to spread the self-love and also just such style and wit and fun and absurdity. It just spoke to me, as a person and as a person who loves the creative spirit. It just slew me, and I knew it had, I hoped, and I knew it had to be seen and that it would speak to others. And what I loved is that it spoke to others in the community, that when we showed it at that NYU, screening, people saw themselves reflected because cinema does elevate stories, and it's a cliche, but it really is true.
Yeah.
But I also think the sense of family really came through for me, just growing up in the Caribbean, where, we would go, you have your family, and then there was always a cousin or two or three or four. You never knew where they came from, but who spawned them or what happened. But they were our family. And so we accepted them as family regardless. And that's what kind of really I remember so much about being in the balls, is the houses and the way they took care of each other. Yes. I was really kind of taken with that. And the way you took care of each other. I think that was amazing and gave worth to each other.
Thank you for that. Let's do. We're going to do 2 more questions. We'll go here to you on the left, on this side.
Hi.
Hi.
This is my favorite film of all time. I've seen it. This is only my 3rd time seeing it, but it's my favorite film ever made for a myriad of reasons.
Thank you.
But I'm one of the many people that have developed their thanks to this movie have gained a greater understanding of themselves and a self-love. Because I mean, so many films that exist in regards to queer people are very sad and are like, oh, it's just the sad parts. Whereas this shows the joy and how much fun.
Shows the black joy. Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And I mean, I'm so grateful for that. But on another note, how did this is for Jenny, how did the structure come about and how involved were you in the edit?
Great question. I think when you set out to make a nonfiction film, or most people I know, I think there are different ways of making documentaries. Some people write scripts, but you have a vision, you have a goal, you have a sense of what it will be, but you don't know, structurally how it's going to be. You're really, it's the script writing happens in the edit. So the way Jonathan Oppenheim, the editor, and I worked together, and Johnny was a fantastic editor. He was so beloved that he passed away from cancer 2 years ago, and there's an editing award at Sundance named after him. He's that beloved. But, we kind of worked with basically, I was a nerd with ideas. I was like, I want to talk about race and class and gender and the construction of identity and, ideas. And he was like, it's about the people, it's about falling in love with the people. So we worked together, kind of the structure went around introducing the audience to the people and, developing you as characters, and then the ideas woven in and we worked it out. And we had these theme roles, that were like the characters and the ideas and the concepts. And we just fought it out till we got there. Worked it out.
Yes, you did.
And our last question of the day. Make it good. Yes, honey.
I love your hair.
Oh, thank you. My question is also filmmaking related. I wanted to hear more about the camera work, how you worked with your cinematographer, and was it single camera, or did you have multiple I mean, it just seemed
Single
like
camera.
really a challenging thing to shoot. And I loved also the street stuff, the white people on the street. Loved that stuff too.
So basically, in the balls, we did, for 2 of the shoots, have 2 cameras, one up in the wings and one. That was really expensive, and for all the other stuff was always 1 camera. When we were doing interviews, as you'll recall, this was, again, the day of film. So, you didn't, again, this little device, it'll work anywhere practically. And so will your prosumer camera that you get at the camera store. But in film, it was you needed lights. So we would go into people's homes and we were trying to light to make it feel like the way it felt. We weren't trying to make it too bright, but we used gels on lights. The gaffer would set the lights. And then with moving the camera, I really felt like a lot of the film was about, you're given a body, it is what it is. And maybe you don't feel comfortable with it, or maybe that body is another gender, or maybe you're struggling with how people with bodies like yours are treated in your society. So I wanted the camera to get very close on people so you would feel like, well, what if I had that body? Well, what is my body in relation to that body? So we really worked with lenses and movements to kind of play with that idea. And I think we did it. I think it works in some of the scenes. Yeah. And, we were just always trying to move quickly, get things quickly, and keep the relationship. One of the things about spending 2 years talking to people and getting to know people, not that I knew everybody super well, but, is that when you go in, there's a comfort level. And the camera itself can disappear a little. Because if you if you just suddenly turned a camera on me, I'd be pretty nervous. But if I'd already talked to you for a couple of years, less so.
And Freddie, you did some of the camera work?
Jenny, yes. Yes. You remember? She remembers.
On 2 episodes of Paul.
Okay.
She remembers.
I also learned how
camera.
to load the mags.
Yeah.
So.
Right. See, we were together learning.
Well, I think that is it. I have one question. Y'all might not know this, but I'm unlocking the mysteries of Paris is Burning.
Love you
Who
for that.
stole the shoes? Do we know who stole the shoes? Because I'm looking for them black patent leather pumps, honey.
I didn't steal them because I was on the microphone telling them to give her her shoes.
Right. I was in the back ironing Kim's clothes, so I
One
didn't
of us, nobody knows who this is. Okay.
I think it was Josie Extravaganza, but she dead. So
Well,
you can't beat her up.
Well, we heard
It was Josie.
Okay.
She was cracking out at that time.
So we might have put it to rest.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for what you've given us in the past, what you continue to give to the community, and your legacy, and it just ripples out so wonderfully. Please give it up for Natalie G. Hill, Freddie Lee Pendavis, Saul Williams Pendavis, Jennie Livingston. Thank you to UCLA. Thank you to the Hammer. And thank you to each and every one of you. My name is Peppermint. We'll take some pictures right here. You can put out your phone and take a picture of us at the end of the. We'll just stand here and take a picture of us, and then we're gonna go.
Photograph on the big old poster.